Hey, this is Ryan Phillips here. Jay-Z convinced me to make some videos for the Southern Nevada qualifier. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the 4 videos that I haven't made. So the one with David Lucky's already been done. So in the first round, I had the black piece against Robert Lucero. I think he's rated about 1,500 or no 1,400 and something. So I wanted to try to make this an easy game for myself. So I opened with the Sicilian. Again, I had the black pieces, and he opted for the C3 Sicilian. And I thought this was a pretty good choice actually. Just I think the C3 Sicilian is kind of a hard opening to win against. I think players that know how to face it, maybe not too much of an advantage for white if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a pretty lethal opening. So I thought this was a very good choice. So here I played D5, and then E takes D. And here I was really tempted to play Knight F6 because I was kind of concerned after Queen takes D5 that my opponent could get a lead in development. And considering I had a nice little rating advantage here and I think I'm a better player, um, I thought that kind of giving my opponent the opportunity would be a mistake. But at the same time, I didn't think Knight F6 was particularly good either, so I think I ended up just opting for Queen takes D5, and I figured that hopefully my queen will be safe enough that I could play well enough to not really give my opponent any kind of big lead in development. So here my opponent played a pretty bad move right out of the opening, something that you wouldn't really see from a higher rated player. And that's why I like playing lower rated players every once in a while because it really does sharpen your understanding of chess. Some moves that you don't even consider anymore just because you know they're bad, players that are lower rated than you will play, and it's important to prove why they're bad, not just to say, "Oh, I know this is bad," and then move on. So when you play a lower rated player, it kind of forces you to prove why the moves are bad. So anyway, so I saw Queen F3 here, which is just a very bad move. So already I could see kind of what his idea is. His idea is just to trade off the pieces and hope to draw the game against me. So obviously I don't want that. So here I just continue my development. So I played Knight F6. And here I think I already have a pretty slight little advantage just because my pieces are well developed, and the queen on F3 is just very misplaced. This knight wants to go to F3. So, and if the queen takes my queen and I take back and then knight F3, it seems like I just have a small lead in development, and I think it's going to be a lot easier for me to develop my pieces as the game kind of progresses. Maybe like knight C6 and bishop G4 is one potential plan. Maybe just knight C6, knight E5. Actually, no, I have to get rid of this knight first. So maybe, yeah, maybe knight C6, bishop G4, trying to trade off, and then like knight E5 or something. Something like that might be a plan. I don't have to worry about the B7 pawn in that line, but something along those lines, I think I should have a nice position. So anyway, we saw bishop B5 check here, though. So my opponent, I think, just made it really clear they just want to trade off pieces whenever possible. So here I played bishop d7. I thought this was significantly better than knight c6 or knight b to d7. I think knight b to d7 is bad, just blocking in my light square bishop, and I didn't really want that. I wasn't too concerned about trading off the pieces just yet. I figured there'd be enough activity to kind of play for a win, which of course is the goal in this game, was to win. So yeah, I felt pretty comfortable with bishop d7 still, and just taking advantage of lead development and just kind of squeezing my opponent. I'm already in this position. I have my eye on this d3 square if possible. So I was thinking pretty long-term plan. So we saw bishop takes d7. I just continue my development. Knight b takes d7. Queen takes d5. Knight takes d5. And then here I think my opponent made a pretty serious mistake already. I thought knight f3 was going to be played, but instead my opponent played knight e2, and that allowed knight e5. So I went immediately with my plan of trying to get this attack this d3 square. And already this is a pretty powerful threat. The reason is that a move like d4, which wasn't played, just doesn't work because either the bishop's going to fall or the f pawn. So knight d3, king f1. Oh, I'm sorry, the knight's guarding the bishop, but I'm sorry, knight f1, or king f1, and here my position is of course better. It's gonna be hard to get this rook into h1 into the game anytime soon, and all my moves seem not overly complex to find. And this knight d3 outpost, it looks pretty good. Even a move like c4, I wonder if this is a playable move. So let's see what the computer says. I mean, even this move might be okay. And then, oh, this knight a3 idea is good. Alright, so maybe this isn't a good plan, but I mean, just with the king on f1, my pieces are gonna have an easy time developing, I think. So anyway, so that move was not played. Instead, my opponent played castle. And then after castle, I went with knight d3 anyway, which I think makes the most sense, just to place a knight on this square right here. Really stop the development of my opponent's pieces since the d pawn can't move. It's really hard for this rook to get anywhere. It's just really difficult for my opponent to do anything. I'm kind of paralyzing him. And this felt real good, to be honest. I mean, I've been on the other side of this where you feel paralyzed, and that's not too much fun. So to kind of have an opportunity to win a game like this, normally I would try to play tactically and keep the queens on the board, all that stuff. But this game, that really wasn't the best way to play, I didn't think. So here to have this kind of position where I'm just making my opponent's pieces pretty much useless was pretty cool, especially right at the opening. So I saw knight a3 here. And then here I kind of had a difficult decision. I think I found a good plan with g6. The idea actually is not to play the bishop to g7, but to play it to h6 and just put maximum pressure on the d2 pawn, which can't move. The idea, there's no real immediate idea of bishop h6, knight takes c1, bishop takes d2, because then rook d1, and I'm going to lose a piece. But this is a long-term plan, so I'm going to maybe put a rook on d8 first and just build up the pressure. I mean, this knight on d3 is of course significantly better than the bishop on c1, so I'm not really threatening this idea immediately, but it's something I have in the back of my mind already. So then we saw knight c2. So just threatening to move the knight to e1 and get rid of this powerful knight here, which of course my opponent wants to do. Here the computer showed I play a little bit of inaccuracy, but I went ahead with bishop h6. So this move is not too terrible, but I guess castle queenside was a more accurate move. So then we saw knight e1, and I played knight 5 to f4, just protecting my counterpart here. And then just to show kind of a sample variation, which is somewhat like what happened in the game, take, of course take with the knight. The cool part is that you can't really push a d pawn still, because I have this knight e2 check idea, winning a piece. So I was kind of fortunate that my position was so dominant. I had moves like that. So after knight 5 to f4, my opponent did play knight f4, and I took back. And then here my opponent played knight f3, which was I think this was the move I was expecting, just preparing to push the e-pawn now. So here the computer showed I made a pretty bad move. I castled here, which looking at the position now, it does look pretty bad. But I thought I could get away with this move since the d-pawn is... Actually, now the d-pawn can be moved. So this is just a really bad move, castle. I'm not sure why I played this move. Oh no, I mean, okay. After d4, I could win the exchange still with knight e2 check. So that was kind of my logic, that the d-pawn still couldn't move. So I figured castle was a good option. And then king h1, but computer shows rook e1, which I thought this move was not that great. I looked at this option, of course, and I was planning on playing knight d3. I guess this rook takes e7 idea. I thought I could maybe get away with this, but... Or even, I don't know, what did I look at here? I thought even e6 might be playable here. But I don't know. Yeah, I thought after rook e1, I think I was playing. I can't remember now, but I think e6 was definitely something that I was considering, and I was worried about some knight e5 lines, and I think I calculated something about like f6, and I could get away with something, and I don't know. I think I had to play b6 first to guard the c5 pawn. Then I was playing f6 and king f7. I don't know. It was a pretty lengthy little line that I was looking at, and I thought worked out okay for me. But anyway, my opponent did not play rook e1. He played king h1 just to get out of the nasty check on e2. So I stuck the knight right back on d3. And it's just ridiculously hard for white to develop this dark square bishop. Even ideas of like b3, which wasn't played, kind of runs into b5, I believe. And if they try to get the bishop out to a3, b4 just pretty much makes the bishop go right back to c1 again, since the knight on d3 is also covering the b4 square. So yeah, this bishop's just really very unpleasant for my opponent. So here after knight d3, we saw h4. So my opponent's just in desperation mode already. I guess creating a square for the knight to go to g5, I thought, but that never ended up happening. So I played rook fd8. And then here we saw g4, and then I realized that my opponent was just going for nonsense, just trying to scare me with some kingside play, but this is absolutely nothing. So I played bishop f4, king g2, and then here the rest of the game was kind of an easy little squeeze for me, so I played e5, and now this bishop on f4 is pretty much an untouchable, like the really hot girl at the school dance, although sometimes that's not accurate. But anyway, e5. Rook d1, and then here I didn't think I could play e4 immediately because I was worried about knight g5. So I think I probably played an inaccuracy here, but let me look at this line. I thought knight g5 was okay here. Yeah, I didn't realize that this was so good for me. I actually thought this was kind of a risky plan for me to open up h-file for my opponent. I figured maybe they could double with the rooks at some point. Although, of course, it's still difficult to get the dark square bishop developed, but I didn't actually care for this plan too much, so I actually opted for a slow move, which, again, is probably not that great. I played f6 here, and I thought f6 was better than h6 here because I thought that endgame might be coming up soon. I wanted to let my king advance, and without a light square bishop for my opponent, I didn't feel any worry at all by playing an f6 move and weakening my light squares. I didn't think my opponent could do much about it. And my opponent's position is still pretty much paralyzed, so I didn't know really what he could do. So he found a4. I'm sorry, let me go back. In this position I didn't play f6 yet. I probably could have played it here. I played rook d7, doubling up. I'm sorry about that. So f6 will come a little bit later. So doubling up on the d file, just applying maximum pressure to the d2 pawn at some point. So then we saw a4, just trying to play rook a3. At first, I thought this was an idea to get the bishop to a3, which I think is a reasonable plan. But my opponent never really played it that way, even though I think he should have. I think after rook a d8, if he was going to play b3, I was just going to take the bishop and then play e4 and win the pawn. Or actually, I might have even just played bishop takes and just gone into the endgame, the rook and pawn endgame up a pawn. Which actually is the most drawish way for their opponent to play when they're down the pawn. But I thought that my rook was so much more active than my opponent's rook in that position that I don't think it would offer too much drawing chances to my opponent. So here I played rook a d8. And then we saw rook a2, which I did not understand at all. I guess he was trying to indirectly defend the d2 pawn, so I guess I do understand it. I think I was expecting rook a3 though and rook b3. Which I thought was a better plan just to activate your rook a little bit. I don't think it was a threatening move, but this rook on a2 is really bad. So here I played f6, which is probably too slow. But I have all the time in the world here to just kind of sit on the position. My opponent can't do much. So here we see b3. And then here I start my nice pawn march with e4. Knight g1. And then here I just decided to take my material happily. I played knight takes c1. Rook takes c1. I played rook takes d2. Rook takes. Rook takes. And then in this position it's clear that I'm totally winning. The e4 pawn is nice to stop the knight from coming back to f3. And also I'm threatening e3 in this position, and also Yeah, and also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I was the 15-minute mark. Sometimes the video, the commentary kind of seems out of place, and that's because every 15 minutes the recorder stops and I have to start back up again, and it's hard for me to know exactly the last thing I said was before the video shut off because it actually kind of shuts off a few seconds before the 15-minute mark, so I don't know exactly where to pick back up from. But anyway, one of my threats in this position was rook takes f2. This was a good move, just winning the rook on c1 after the king takes, so I get an extra pawn. So yeah, so I have a lot of good threats here. Unfortunately, knight h3 is a useful move here that prevents kind of all these good tactics. In this position, I don't think rook takes f2 is particularly good. And I think in this position, even though I'm still up a pawn, I didn't think I had much winning chances because I'm not even going to be up a pawn for long. The f6 pawn and the c5 pawn are being attacked, and I can't defend them both. So unfortunately for me, this rook takes f2 simplification idea doesn't work here. So I have to kind of stand in the position a little bit longer. So I played bishop e5, which was the best move. And now I was threatening something. I can't remember what I was threatening. I think I'm just threatening rook d3 here. Oh no, I think I was threatening e3 in this position. So that was e3 was a real threat. I think I could play e3, e2 maybe. I can't remember. There was I had a lot of strong kind of ideas in this position. So anyway, I saw b4, which is a natural move by my opponent, just trying to create a passed pawn or open up the c file for his rook. So I did a good job of not allowing that with c4. And then we saw rook e1, which was another good move by my opponent, just attacking the e4 pawn. So I had to protect this with f5. My opponent took. I took. So that's a logical take. I think when you're the losing side, you want to do everything you can to trade off pawns and keep pieces on the board. So I thought trading off a pair of pawns was logical. So we saw rook e3. And I played rook d3, just hoping that the rooks would get exchanged off. I get a passed pawn, I'm going to win the c pawn. You know, this is a good move because my opponent really can't take, otherwise he's going to be dead lost, which he pretty much is already. So we saw rook e2. And then I took on c3. So basically I wasn't worried about my opponent putting the rook on d2 and getting the open file because I could contest the open file with rook d3 again. So that was my only concern when I took the pawn. I didn't want to give my opponent control of the d file, of course. So we saw knight g5, and this move is actually slightly annoying for me. I had to play pretty accurately in this position. So here I played h6, which I don't think in retrospect was a particularly good move. My opponent got knight e6 in. And this position actually I thought for quite a while because even though I'm up so much, if I don't play accurately here, this is very, very tricky for me. Basically, this knight d8 idea is very strong because this pawn's not very easy to defend. If the pawn moves after knight d8, then knight c6 is going to win the a pawn, and then suddenly the a and b pawns can maybe create a passed pawn, and you know, once that happens, then my opponent has some resources and they can do some positive things from their position. So this was very, very difficult for me to find the right idea. But after a long thing, I found a line that I was extremely satisfied with. And I had to calculate very accurately, so I'm trusting my calculating abilities more and more, which is another reason why I think my play has gotten better. So here I played rook d3, which might not look like a good move immediately, but it's actually a very strong move. And the idea is that after c5, after knight c5, which was played in the game, I have this nice c3 move. And if knight takes here, then rook d2 simply is just going to win everything. This c pawn's not going to be stopped. So say even king f1, then I just play c2, and I'm going to queen. And if you see rook here, then rook d1, and then if king here, I could take, and then promote. I mean, everything just wins. So I'm threatening to promote. There's nothing my opponent can do. And And then the more logical move you're probably thinking is, well, what about knight takes d3, which was not played in the game. And this move just totally wins for me, and very simply, I believe. So after take, you could try to keep the rook on the second rank, or you can move it back, but the pawn's going to promote. So to test it, though, I have to make sure that rook takes e5 doesn't work, of course. And I thought in this position, c2 is a little bit better than d2 to, I think, pushing the pawn away from the king was a better option. And then here, there's no way to stop one of the pawns from promoting. And I think I just have an easy endgame here. So say, I guess rook c5, d2, and then take, queen. And I still don't know how to under-promote with Rivka. I wish if someone knows how, I hope someone will tell me, because I would like to know how to do that. But anyway, in this position, this is just an easily won game. Well, yeah, with the pawns on the board, it's easily won. If it was just king and queen versus king and rook, maybe it wouldn't be so trivial. But since there's 4 pawns on the board and I'm going to win all of them, it's not too terrible for me. So maybe like rook c8 check, king f7. And then here the b7 pawn is immune because I have this queen d5 check idea. What is this? I think this is a fork. Yeah, forking the king on g2 and the rook on b7. So that would be a nice little tactical idea for me. So basically this whole line just works very well, and I think it was the simplest way to win. So I was happy I found this line. So after c3, my opponent played king f1. So I played rook d1 check. And then rook e1 would run into c2. I don't remember, did my opponent play rook e1? They played the king back to g2. I played rook d2 here. And let's see why b6 is better. Rook d2 looked like the cleanest win to me. So I played rook d2, king f1, c2, knight b3, rook d1 check, and then rook e1 just runs into bishop c3, which my opponent saw, so he played king g2, and I just promoted to a queen. My opponent took, I took, and then here we saw rook d2, and I thought the simplest way was just rook c7, just to hold everything and play from there. So my opponent actually did a good job of prolonging the game, although he could have resigned here pretty easily, I believe. But whatever. Rook d5, rook e7, h5, f4. So I'm just trying to create a passed pawn with e3 here. b5. I think there's a difference between a video and a book on chess. I think if it was a book on chess, I could just write, and the ending was trivial, and then end it. But I think in a video, I owe it to my audience to go through the rest of the game. But the expression, the ending was trivial from here, would be appropriate. So I played e3. King f3. Bishop c3. I think there's probably something better. Bishop c7, the computer's liking. Then I don't know. I thought bishop c3 was fine, also guarding the e1 square. So bishop c3, f takes, king e2, bishop d2, rook d6, king h7, a5, which is a bad blunder. I just snatched it off. Bishop takes a5. Rook g6. Bishop back to d2, which I think was actually, this wasn't the best way to play this. I don't think my plan was that great here. But anyway, so we saw bishop d2. Rook f6. Rook g7, just trying to check on g2. King d3, which is a good plan. So I have to come up with a different plan. Rook back to e7, king back to e2. So bishop c3 here. So I have to penetrate a different way, which is always fun. Rook d6, bishop e5, rook back to g6, bishop f4, and then here I thought I could move the rook to d7 or c7 and check and make some progress. Rook f6, bishop g5, rook d6 again. It's hard to remember these kind of positions, I think, just because there's so many rook moves back and forth. But anyway, rook c7. So just ready to play rook c2 check. King f3. And then here I think I played a pretty bad move. I played did I play e? Is this what happened? Oh, I played. No, hold on. I don't know. Last move's not right. Oh yeah, we saw rook e6. And then I played rook c2 check. King f3. And here I probably played a move which wasn't the sharpest or probably most accurate, but I thought this was just an easy way to win the game. I played e2. And then just hoping that my opponent takes the pawn, and then the king and pawn game with the extra bishop, of course, is pretty decisive. So here I thought king g4 was actually the best move. In which case, I'm not exactly sure how I would have won this exactly. But obviously there would be a nice win somewhere. But it might have taken some more time. But here my opponent played king f2, which made it very easy on me. And then after bishop h4 check, my opponent resigned. So I was happy he resigned here, and this is the 60th move of the game, so I didn't have to go grab another score sheet, which is always a pain. Which I thought that was kind of his goal, was to make me use a second score sheet, which I know some players do that. So I was happy he was a gentleman and resigned this position, since it's of course dead lost. So yeah, it was the first round of the tournament. I thought it was a good start, a pretty painless game. Yeah, I was optimistic about my chances in the later rounds. So hope you enjoyed. Have to do my patented sign off. I should mix up the colors instead of red or blue. I mean. Anyway, this is Ryan Phillips signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you appreciate the video.